In this video, we're going to show you how to install the radiator on your Ford Mustang located in front of your motor. We're going to use a 1/2-inch socket. We're going to go ahead and loosen the nut on the terminal here. And go ahead and give this a little wiggle. Now we did spray this down with some penetrant here to go ahead and loosen things up. Wiggle that terminal off and just set that down aside. Use the 1/2-inch socket or wrench. Loosen the nut. Now that we have that nut loose, we're going to go ahead and twist this and lift that off and tuck that off to the side. Now your battery is normally held down in place into the battery tray by a wedge that is normally in this location right here, and it's screwed in usually using a 10mm bolt going through the middle, and it secures the battery into the battery tray. On our particular model, it is gone. It appears that the bolt or screw had broken here. You want to go ahead and remove that bolt out of the center, remove that block on your vehicle, and you can go ahead and lift up on the battery, pull it up, and set that aside. Using an 8mm socket, go ahead and loosen and remove the bolt here. If you follow the expansion tank hose over to the filler neck on the radiator here, I want to go ahead and slide that hose off. Grab that expansion tank and we're going to pull up on that. And by doing that, you're just lodging the mounting tab on the base that goes into a mounting bracket on the bottom. Go ahead and set this aside. Now, if you follow this wire harness down to the back of your electric fan, there's going to be an electrical connector right here. Now, normally there's a little spring clip here that locks it into place. Our particular one is broken. But what you want to do is you want to lift up on that little tab that would normally be in here, and then wiggle that connector and pull that out and separate that like so. Now the harness itself is held into the cooling fan. You can go ahead and just wiggle that out, and it's held in a couple particular spots here. Just separate that from the fan and tuck that harness aside for now. Now on the driver's side, right beside where the battery would be located, there's an 8mm bolt underneath your transmission cooler line here. I'm going to use my 1/4-inch ratchet in my 8mm socket, and we'll go ahead and loosen and remove that bolt. Now once we remove this here and set that bolt aside, there is going to be the same bolt on the passenger side. You're just going to go over to the passenger side and remove that one there as well. On the passenger side, locate that upper radiator hose. Just below it, you're going to find that other 8mm bolt. Let's go ahead and loosen and remove that one there as well. Now at this point here, the fan itself should be loose. I just have one more of these little plastic clips here holding that harness to the fan. It's hard to pull that one out. I'm going to use my trim tool right here. Just hop on in there and separate that, pull that off. Across the top, we have this plastic cover right here. I want to go ahead and remove these retaining buttons here. Pop that out, do the same for the one beside it. Now using the trim tool just gives you a little upward pressure on that, so go ahead and pull that up a little bit easier. Go ahead and pop that aside. Well, we have those two out. Let's go ahead and remove the two on the front side of it. Go ahead and grab that cover, lift it up, and set it aside. We're going to remove this bracket using a 10mm socket. Loosen and remove these two bolts. probably loosen that one a portion and slide that over like so. Now we'll go to pull up our fan. You can't pull it straight up. The passenger side will hit the radiator hose. The driver's side will hit the transmission cooler line. So what we're going to do is gently pull it up and then drop the driver's side down and then lift up on the passenger side. This will get it past the radiator hose, lift up the fan, and pull it out. Remove your radiator cap, push down, twist it counterclockwise, and lift up on that. On the passenger side lower portion of the radiator, you're going to find the drain valve right here. Now, I'm going to use a 19mm socket on that. You can use a 19mm wrench as well. And you want to go ahead and loosen this. Now we have a drain bucket underneath. We're draining our radiator or our cooling system. So go ahead and start to unthread this. And coolant will start to come out. We're going to wait till this is completely empty, and then we'll close up that valve again. Now at this point here, pretty much it's just a slow dribble. Let's go ahead and thread in that plug. You can get away with just tightening that by hand. Just snug that in gently. I'm going to use a paper towel here just to wipe up any of the residual. Just going to make for a cleaner project once we get back up on top of the vehicle and continue working up there. On the driver's side lower of the radiator is your hose here with the clamp. We're going to use a pair of pliers. We have our drain bucket underneath. I'm going to move that clamp back, release that, and let's go ahead and wiggle that hose. You might get some coolant out of this as well, so be careful. Safety glasses and keep your mouth closed. There we go. Reason for keeping your mouth closed is you don't want that to splash, and you don't want to be tasting any of that antifreeze. That's not good. Now right up above here, we have a transmission line. We're going to use our wrench. We're going to use our 13mm. We're going to come onto the outside nut right here and loosen that. Now when doing this, you want to be careful. You don't want to twist the line with the nut. That should be spinning separately, and ours is sticking a little bit, so I'm going to go ahead and spray that down with some rust penetrant and let that set for a little bit. Now there is one of these lines up on top as well. We're going to go ahead and spray that one while we're here. Before we unthread this all the way, we're going to go ahead and change out our catch can or our bucket, because transmission fluid is going to come out of this here. So we want to go ahead and swap that out and not mix that with our antifreeze. Here we go. Now let's go back on top of the vehicle and disconnect the upper transmission line. On the upper side, we're going to do the same. On our upper radiator bracket, we have an 8mm bolt here, and we did spray it with some rust penetrant. Just go ahead, loosen and remove this bolt. There's one on the driver's side, one on the passenger side. Let's remove them both. Use your pliers on the upper radiator hose clamp. If you want, you could probably work the hose off once that's opened up. I'm going to try and work this back separately. Here we go. Once you have that hose back, go ahead and work that off like so. Now at this point, our radiator is loose. We can go ahead and pull it straight up. We're going to be pulling the bottom portion of the radiator out of 2 rubber grommets. There will probably be some coolant left in here, so I did stuff a towel or a rag in the lower radiator hose port below. Go ahead and slowly work this up and out, working it carefully around your transmission lines without damaging or bending those. And there you go. Install the new retaining clips on the bracket. And once you get this one on, go ahead and repeat for the other side. And we're going to take one of these O-rings here. I want to put a little bit of clear silicone grease on the O-ring. Go ahead and drop that down inside. And the purpose of that grease or that silicone paste is to hold that O-ring in place once it's seated until we can get our transmission lines threaded in. So go ahead and get that in there, tuck it down into place, and then do the same for the other. I'm going to lower the radiator down and put the pins on the lower portion of the radiator into the rubber grommets down below. There's one on the driver's side and one on the passenger side. That is going to support the radiator in place. Here we go. So you want to go ahead and thread in our transmission lines. And you want to make sure these are good and snug. You'll feel them bottom out and just give them a little bit more. And then go ahead and repeat for the bottom. Install your upper radiator support brackets. I'm just going to get that bolt started by hand, and we'll go ahead and put the driver's side one in next. Once you have both of those started, go ahead and snug them down. Now what I'm going to do is just kind of match up where the washer here goes on the bracket. It'll help me line up that bracket, same position that it was originally. There's usually a telltale dirt line or something like that showing that. You just snug that down. It doesn't have to be super tight, but you do want it to be snug in order to hold the radiator. Here's bottomed out. Good quarter turn, you should be good. Install the upper radiator hose. Once the hose is on, go ahead and move the clamp back into position. Now from up top here, we can go ahead and get our lower radiator hose installed. Now the only reason why we did this from below last time is that that's where we were when we drained the radiator. It's okay to go ahead and install these from up top. Get your pliers on there and move that hose clamp into position. Now, when installing the fan, you want to make sure that the little tabs here and on the other side as well, up top here, drop down into the locking tabs on our radiator. We're going to install the driver's side first at an angle, drop that down inside, and then swing the passenger side into place. Push the radiator fan down into the retainer tabs. Now let's install our two 8mm bolts on the driver and passenger side of that fan. Now we have the driver's side started in by hand. Let's go ahead and repeat for the passenger side. Now we have both of our bolts in. You want to go ahead and snug those down. Now it just has to be snug enough to hold the cooling fan in place. It doesn't have to be super tight. Bottom that out. It's snug. Repeat for the driver's side. And snug that gently. Once again, if you over tighten it, you can crack the plastic. So just make sure that once that's bottomed out, give it about a quarter turn and you're all set. Swing the bracket over, line up the bolt. And snug these down. Install the upper cover. Press the retainer buttons in. Reconnect your electrical connector, line that up and push it in. Make sure you feel that and hear it snap into place. At that point there, you're all set. Lower our expansion tank down in a position. That fits into our lower support bracket down below. Pop that in, line up the upper portion and get your bolt placed in. Get that started by hand. And then we'll go ahead and snug that down with our ratchet. Once that bottoms out just a little bit more, grab that expansion tank hose, plug that into our neck on our radiator. Now with your radiator cap off and your funnel in place, you now want to go ahead and start to fill the cooling system with the recommended coolant from the manufacturer. Now at this point here, our radiator is filled up. We're going to put our plug in here. We are going to lose a tiny bit at the top when we undo this here. Install your radiator cap. Our next step is to go ahead and make sure that your expansion tank is filled up. If you were to add fluid, you just pop this open, put your funnel in here, and add the fluid as necessary. Now our expansion tank, you can see down below, we're using a mirror here to show you that there is a full cold area, and that's the line of our fluid is in that general area. Now what we want to do now is hook up our battery. You want to go ahead and start up the vehicle. Let it run for about 10 minutes. You want to put the heat on high, let it cycle through, let that thermostat open up. You want to watch that fluid in the expansion tank. And there is a point on this tank that it says full hot up on the upper portion of the tank. You want to make sure that that fluid, after the vehicle has been warmed up for about 20 minutes or so, that fluid is at that level. If it is not, you're going to go ahead and open up the cap again, add fluid through here. Never open up the radiator cap after the vehicle has been run and hot. only access your coolant through here. Now, after you've replaced the radiator and you had those transmission coolant lines disconnected, we had lost a tiny bit of fluid. You want to come on up to the top here. It's on the passenger side of the engine bay towards the firewall. You're going to locate your transmission fluid level right here. You want to go ahead and grab that. It's a little loop, and pull this out. On the very end right here is going to give you a fluid level. There is a lower section that says C for cold, and if you rotate it, it is H for hot. And what you want to do is go ahead and start up the vehicle. Let it run for a little bit, probably about 10-15 minutes, and cycle the transmission through park, reverse, drive, back and forth a couple times, and then put it into neutral. You're now going to come back out here and you're going to check the fluid level. And ideally, you want to go ahead and check that in the hot level. So you would come back out here, pull this out, check it, and it should be in that upper section in the hot area. If it is low, go ahead and add a little bit of the appropriate transmission fluid to top this off. Insert this here. Make sure nothing interferes with the installation. Pull the wires and stuff out of the way. Make sure that's fully seated in there. You should feel it pop right in through the rubber grommet. Take it for road test, and it's always good to double check that one more time. At that point there, you're all set. Go ahead and lower the battery down into the battery tray. And bring up our positive terminal and pop that into place. Now at this point, you want to go ahead and install your battery wedge or hold down block down here. Put that wedge in, get that bolt lined up, thread that in, and snug that down gently. What you want to do is when you tighten that down, you just want to make sure that the battery doesn't slide around like this. You want to make sure it's locked in and pretty snug. Once that's all set, grab that ground terminal, hook that up, and you want to use your ratchet to go ahead and snug these down in a position. You want to go ahead and snug that down gently. Now you don't want to over tighten these here. You want to get that snug, grab that terminal, give that a wiggle, make sure that doesn't spin on there. Go ahead and do the same over here. Snug that down, give that a wiggle, and that's not going anywhere. You're all set.
When only the best will do, demand TRQ. The only company that lets you view before you do. TRQ is committed to offering the highest quality aftermarket auto parts that are engineered for peace of mind. Thanks for using and viewing with TRQ.